a little bit of background. Every year we celebrate National Historic Preservation Month in May. This started with an annual weekly event and was originally sponsored by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. The city has always piggybacked on that recognition. And when it went to a monthly event, we decided we'd go ahead and do the entire month of May. And rather than just focusing on history, which is, just a lot of facts and figures, we would try to get people connected to the history via the built environment. And so that's really the difference that we're trying to focus on between what was and is often recognition of heritage months versus preservation month, which is a connection to an actual location or building. So the idea each year, we started a few years back. We typically do this in a coffee house. So if everybody's got a cup of coffee or tea that they're wanting to drink, at least we'll feel a little more like we're back there. But this is really an informal group of representatives from different heritage groups throughout Independence or Jackson County. And the intent is to try to pull in participation from all these heritage groups and highlight what you all do. What you try to provide to the public via programming, or what you provide to the public via, your actual recognition through sites. And so we just use these two meetings as brainstorming events. The public is welcome to join us. So if we get someone that you don't recognize and it's a member of the public, we welcome that. And it's really just a chance to maybe pick a theme, maybe not, maybe we just do Independence or Jackson County, and then try to get people more involved. Last year, we did all virtual events. They were not well received. We had about 3 people who participated. And in addition to that, we just had horrible technical difficulties. So some of the lectures that we had, people couldn't get on until almost the very end of the event. So we're just nixing all virtual events this year. I'm perfectly fine with doing things that are more outside oriented rather than inside lectures this year, just to try to make people feel more comfortable and make sure everybody's being safe. But I think, Mike's got a really great program on the gunfight on the square, which is always really well received. We haven't done that in quite a few years. So I was thinking that might be a good one. We can do cemetery tours. I can get Charlotte Aleko involved, who's our city horticulturalist, who can talk about historic landscapes. But really, we're wide open. In addition to that, we celebrate Preservation Month via Preservation Awards. We are struggling to get participation in that, and to the point that I've looked at just canceling it altogether. But I belong to the National Association for Preservation Commissions, and I threw the question out to them. And rather than soliciting from the public, most of them, as a matter of fact, all of them, get a nomination via the Heritage Commission. So we may just turn that back to the Heritage Commission and say, you all come up with someone or a project, or we can nix it all together. And I thought this group would be a really good opportunity to brainstorm about that as well. You all see how the public interacts with our sites and preservation. You know what is well received and what isn't. And so I thought this was also a good forum to just kind of discuss the future of preservation awards, or if we should go a totally different direction and get rid of preservation awards and try to recognize people and places in a completely new way. So those are my 2 items for today. If you see, I am working from home. So if you see my my office mate, who is a very large orange tabby, jump up here, I apologize, but that will be Riley, who is pretty quiet on his opinions. So other than that, I'll turn it over to all of you. Please, this is an opportunity to just think way outside the box. I don't care how out of left field it is, or different you think it is. If you feel like it's a good direction to go and we just try it this year and it works or it doesn't work, we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, I just have one comment about the preservation awards. All those years ago when that was started, Wendy, I don't know that it was ever set up to make it to, you had to have one every year. There may be years when just nothing comes forward, or nothing is deserving of achieving that award. And that was always, when it was originally put together, that was always looked at as a way to to reward people who've done something special, but not to make it so mundane and expected every year that it would lose its point of being special.
That's a good point. I think, we've utilized it as an opportunity to get in front of the city council in a really positive light. Just a chance to fill the council chambers up with people who supported that award recipient, and a chance to just talk about preservation as a positive aspect and asset to the community. And we're just really struggling to find that perfect project or perfect person. And I think we just kind of run out of, good recipients in the pool. We had the 1859 jail recognized last year, which was a great preservation project, but we haven't had anything large or more than solar panels really in the historic district in the last 2 years. So I am fine with not recognizing someone every year, but I'd also really like an opportunity to get out in front of the council and just really toot our own horn. All of these groups represented here today do a great job in highlighting our history and highlighting our built environment, and that's our one really good chance to do that while the council just waves and claps and cheers. So anything that we can do to kind of bring that forward, and not just on social media or not just at an event, is kind of the direction we'd like to stay. But if that isn't possible, then again, we're up for discussion.
Well, is it a communication problem maybe, Wendy? In other words, we're just not finding the right way to reach people with the word that that this Preserve Independence Award, I think is what we call it, exists, and these are the criteria, and this is how you get nominated. Is it a communication issue? Lack of awareness,
I think when you look at the list, for one thing, we've been doing it for 20 years. And it's a small pool. I mean, if there aren't specific projects, there's only so many people at the historic sites that you can recognize, and people in the community who've done big things. And one of the big pushes that we had for preservation was 30 years ago. And most of those people have been recognized and have now moved on. They may have sold their properties. They may not be volunteering anymore. And so finding a way to pull new residents in is great. Finding a way to pull in younger people is great. We're limited on social media because I can only ask for participation via our communications team and hope that they're able to get us fit in. I don't have full access to that. So I can't just submit something and say, please post this, and it automatically go up.
The chaplain at college, and across from Diane's house, and she's done a lot of painting and a lot of exterior and interior improvements. I don't know if she would be open to maybe being nominated, or I don't know. Is that too much inside baseball sort of thing, or? I don't know.
That house has been recognized before, but not with their current owners.
Okay.
So that's
it has been before.
It has.
Oh, it has. Okay.
So it's just something to think about. But I'm willing to take it back to the commission and say, okay, you guys have to come up with a nominee. But I'd also love your ideas about, what else can we do?
Sure.
I see hard thinking going on.
I don't know what that says about us.
It means I've developed my Zoom face.
Oh, that's good.
It might,
as opposed to poker face.
It might not.
This could be an opportunity for the Jackson County Historical Society to help share, because we have, most of our base is independents. So this could be an opportunity for us to use our social media to say, hey, if you have a project or know somebody who's been working on a project, we'd be happy to share that if the city is okay with us using our platform to share, to get the word out.
Sure. And I don't think that anyone would be opposed to that at all. That would be great, Stephanie.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, if you guys can just come up with some social media content, send it over, and I can send it to our development director and he can get it up.
Okay. Anything else? I mean, I was thinking earlier about maybe posting signs at specific sites that just highlight the history there. Doesn't even necessarily mean that, hey, a large project has taken place, but maybe it's just a historical location that people aren't aware that, you know, someone important lived at, or something significant happened at, or sites of buildings that we've lost before that, you know, have some sort of significance. And I can work with my department to make sure they don't get pulled right back out, at least for the month of May. So I'm just some way to get the public to take a look at the places they just drive past quickly every day.
Maybe in the context, I mean, immediately when you said that, Wendy, the site of the Jones Hotel, that's an empty site now. And not to, I know there's a whole history there that if you've been around Independence long enough, you know that history. But it also would be a great place, that's someplace that's very seen a lot, that you can say, you know, not to embarrass or not to point a finger or not to cause any problems, but just say, there's the succession of what happened on this square, on this site, and you know, here's a picture of what it looked like. Here's what was here originally. Here's this, and this, just to point out that if we don't take care of our built environment in this case, then this is something that can happen without, you know, overnight, literally overnight. So, you know, just a, you know, what happened here type of thing might work in several places. That's not the only one out there, in several places that could do. And in the social media, a map that shows where each one of those are at, that, you know, I think we could, as far as getting people spread out across the city and where those things are at, we can even bring in the things that we're working on now, Wendy, of the antebellum homes, and the ones that are there that we can, you know, just a placard that says this is, you know, in the succession, and a little, you know, like I've been writing, a little blurb of history about each one of them. And if we had that could be the precursor to the ultimate website that you're wanting. Yeah. Just as an idea. And that's not I mean, there's other places that, as I look through old pictures from the Jackson County Historic Society, I see more and more of these things that, you know, and pardon me, but in street places is, holy crap, that used to stand there, you know, and I look at that and I go, you know, you understand the progress of time, but I always am drawn to that then and now type picture. And there are several places within the square itself that are within walking distance that we could do. And if you wanted to get in a car, we could expand that out to other places that show those things. And I'm talking houses, but it could be commercial. I mean, you can go around the Independence Square today, and I walked around the square a few weeks ago with a gentleman who pointed out where all the car dealerships were. Kind of a micro niche of things, but it was interesting to hear that. And maybe that is, given a little bit of work, maybe that's just a laminated placard that goes on temporarily on each one of the buildings that show a few pictures and show, you know, it shows what maybe historically what we've lost, but also it points to some progress too. As an idea. I mean, that's just a quick one I had. But
people would be surprised how many car dealerships have been up and around the square. And I've only been here 50 years, and I can remember a lot of them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this guy had a running knowledge of each building as we went by. Oh, this was so and so's, and this was so and so's. And I, you know, being the geek that I am, I thought it was fascinating. But it spoke to a point in history when the not to get on a soapbox, but a point in history where it shows the transition from horse and buggy to automobile and the growth in the city and what that means.
Yeah. And those types of things too, they inspire a certain nostalgia among people. There was one on Facebook yesterday. Somebody posted a picture of a rodeo corral somewhere on 40 Highway. And immediately people started talking about, oh, I remember we went there. My dad took me there. My mom took me there. And it was just really neat to read all of those comments.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe the work around the square. I know we have pictures at least back to the 40s, and I know we have pictures further back than that that may allow that picture graph that shows, you know, the progression of what happened here, and as you know, as you say, build into the nostalgia of it.
Well, I can definitely look at that. We want to think about private property and whether or not you can have people come up close to the building. And we also want to think about whether or not people are going to see it without walking up close to the building. So my thinking was to try to put some sort of a sign on the property that would be consistently designed so that everyone would know every time they see that that's part of the Celebration and Preservation Month. And then perhaps, like you said, include an original picture of what was there. We can put a QR code on it where people can scan it and information about, you know, the history of that site can come up. But that would be a good way to kind of get noticed in the community, would be to maybe highlight 5 or 10 properties a year and put these out and get people to kind of, you know, go around and know that that's, you know, our way of recognizing Preservation Month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of different, you know, and it spreads it beyond, you know, where I live in that core where people always think that's where all the history pertain, you know, everything happened, and it isn't. It you know, it spreads. It'll be an opportunity to spread people across the city.
Mm-hmm.
You could even make it fun, you know, make it fun with a scavenger hunt sort of thing. You know, if you have 5 or 6 properties, and, you know, the task is to take pictures at each, find them, first of all. Also, we have them hidden around. I mean, not in a huge area, but, you know, in and around the square. And then, you know, once you take your pictures, or however you prove you've seen them, you go to the chamber or wherever, and you get a couple tickets to a site or something like that. I don't know. Just,
yeah. Something to add a little more interest to. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. No,
it's a good idea, Mike. I think it's a really good idea. The other thing we did a couple years ago, I don't know if it was in conjunction with Preservation Month, was the heart bombing event we had over at the Truman Depot. And, you know, we had some media coverage. We got an article in the Examiner about it. And, you know, that may require more planning than we're prepared to do in the COVID era, but I thought it was successful. Wendy, I don't know.
It was. I think now that they're doing the hearts on the square for Valentine's Day, we just don't want to confuse the 2 events. So we might, if we do a bombing again, we might want to do something that's, you know, has a different shape to it, or has our, you know, the trust logo or something on it that we can differentiate it from all the hearts that you see posted on the square and around town.
Well, I think it's for May though, right? So I thought it'd be far enough removed in time, but anyway, you know.
I think we did a really great job. The problem is once it got plastered, it wasn't a site that got seen really readily. Yeah. And so I know some of the people that were there were kind of like, okay, well, now what do we do? And I'm like, well, we just stand here and appreciate the building. We didn't really have an end game. Right. We just had a recognition. Yeah. And then we didn't really know what to do with it after that. So I'm really good with those kind of events, but we need to kind of make it a larger purpose than just to stand in awe of our poor vacant Truman Depot.
Well, it did raise awareness of the site. I mean, maybe not to the point where, well, there's probably no direct connection to the renovation that subsequently is still occurring there, but maybe so. I don't know. Just called attention to it.
Well, we had spoken earlier, Wendy, about potentially doing a behind-the-scenes view of the mill office over at across from the Bingham Wagner, next to the National Frontier Trails. It's one of those projects that needs a lot of work, especially on the outside. The inside is still in very good shape and has been taken care of, but it needs first of all, people need to know where it's at because nobody knows where the National Frontier Trails Museum is either. So you couple those 2 things together, but it's one of those, it is a preservation project to be that maybe with some interest generated by a go-through might help. I know quickly, case in point was several years ago, I was on the commission, and we at Preservation Month, when the Truman Memorial Building was in the point of either tear it down or do something with it, there was a standing committee that's supposed to be doing something. Well, they weren't, so we held a community-wide, opened it up for the day, gave everybody flashlights and said, here, go look at this place. And lo and behold, within a few months after that, the committee got active again. And now you have what you have at the Truman Memorial Building. So maybe that might work here too, because we, looking at the building, we know that either something is done now or you just, knock it over. It's going to be that way, but yet it has potential for what it can be. So
yeah, it absolutely does.
I would like a day to do that. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of effort, just some advertising to let us know what's going on, because it's much like, in a different sort of way, but it's much like the memorial building that, there was a time when everyone's life and independence went through the memorial building. And I can say it almost unequivocally. The mill office is not quite that much of an icon, but a heck of a lot of people I know had a beer or two when it was the bar. So
that's where I went for vacation church school when I needed beer bottles covered with masking tape and make them look like antiques. So it was I was afraid somebody get a picture of me tipping over the barrels there to get those empties out of there. The guys were willing to sell me a couple of cases full, but I can only drink so much.
Well, I'm looking at the calendar, Mike. Do you have a weekend that you want to try to do that? Because I think what we can do is try to get a larger event going. So if we can do maybe something in the National Frontier Trails Museum and or the CNA Depot and have kind of a one-stop shop of events going on that weekend, we can kind of highlight all of the sites there and allow for tours. Talk about what the intent is for hopefully a long range plan to restore it.
Yeah, I have to check with the museum because I know we've been talking about some things to sponsor, and I can't remember if it's April or May or if it'll make a difference one way or the other. I'll talk to Janae about that and see what she says, but I think that's the right thing to do is to coordinate all those things together and get everybody at one point.
So we've got the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th are probably open Saturdays. We're always competing with graduations for May, and there's not much we can do about that. That's just, the nature of the beast. So if you could look at maybe one of those 3 Saturdays, and I can coordinate with John Thornton at the CNA and Frank Burrow at the Frontier Tourist Museum. And then I can go ahead and get something on the calendar for that. So
okay. And what was the first date, Wendy?
The 14th, the 21st, or the 28th.
Okay.
Really, because of COVID and how we've had to kind of shift our thinking, if we could even just get 1 or 1.5 good sheets of an event, which just the front and maybe part of the back of a calendar for this, I think we'll be happy. And then, every year we're saying this, hopefully next year will be better, but hopefully next year will be better. And we can get back to having, all the events that we had been doing in 2019 and earlier. So if we can maybe get 5 or 6 events, and I'm just throwing out, I can talk to Charlotte about a landscape event. We can talk about walking tours. We can talk about just tours of actual locations. We can come up with a theme again and just try to lay out all of our, events based on a theme. But if I can kind of collectively through this meeting, just get maybe 5 or 6 events, and then we can work on the details and bring that back in March, then I think we'll be in pretty good shape.
Okay.
And I think that's an excellent one, Mike. That will absolutely bring attention to the mill office. And a lot of people drive by it every day and are kind of curious what it's like on the inside. So even people who aren't preservation minded, I think would probably just be interested in taking a look at it.
Everybody wants to always see behind the door.
Yes, they do.
Always.
Has there been much effort to get people in and out of the log cabin down there?
There has been none. And that is another day I think we can highlight the courthouse there.
Everybody,
the cabin, I'm sorry, not the courthouse.
Dwayne, everybody is struggling with what to do with it.
Oh,
Okay, they know it's important, they know that it's there, and they know what to do, but they don't know how they want to interpret it.
right.
We're having a lot of discussions about that, at least on the friends board we are. We part of the Friends Board's emphasis has been over the last year has been we've always talked about those people who left Independence and went west, but we never interpreted and talked about the people who stayed in Independence and made Independence what it is today. Those people who came to Independence specifically to be merchants or to live here or to create the churches and all the rest of that kind of stuff that became the city that we know. We've never emphasize that, and I think then that's been a point that's been had many discussions on the board, on the Friends board level anyway, and that is not to get off on the cabin for too long, but that is a great opportunity to interpret what it meant to stay behind in Independence, at least as a start, and get the domestic tranquility. Also, what we're looking at there, just to let you all know, is out on the talking about is the backside of that is a natural amphitheater behind it, and with a clear space in front and the hill behind it and the two buildings on either side create a natural amphitheater that has very good acoustics. So we're discussing the other night of starting to, just in the early discussions, starting to host a musical / whatever event once a month on a stage there. All kind of grassroots right now, but it's an excellent opportunity to bring people into that part of town to showcase everything that's there, and hey, have a little fun too. So, not to get away from your meeting, Wendy. I just log cabin came up, so I thought I'd throw that out there.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Any ideas from the Park Service? Are you guys interested in anything specific in a walking tour or maybe an outdoor program or?
Yeah, we've got a couple. Jeff, why don't you go ahead? I like your idea.
Well, this was, see, I'm not sure it's going to be an outdoor kind of thing. I was thinking about doing a program specifically about sites on the National Register in Independence. There's about 24 of them, but I'm thinking about a walking tour. I'd have to look at a map and see just how many of them would be close enough together to make that a feasible thing. Initially, I was picturing more of a PowerPoint, but that may be something we're not really able to get into this time. We don't know what's going to happen as far as reopening the house, but last summer we were doing those yard tour kind of things where there really wasn't a yard tour because it's not much of a yard, but it was primarily to get some outside views of the house that people don't ordinarily get to see. And then close-up look at the garage and his car and things like that. And I said it was just kind of left open. We had it on our website, but it was just kind of left open for whoever might show up. Every half hour, we take them with us. But we could promote a few special times to do that. Really make it out there. And we very rarely had more than 10 people on a tour. And Doug, how did we decide that was the maximum? I mean, there was a few times we took a few more than that. It didn't really seem to make that much difference.
Yeah, I not necessarily arbitrary, but we didn't want it to be too unmanageable for the ranger or volunteer.
Yeah, I think it was probably a good idea just to be on the safe side. But the few times we had more than 10, it wasn't much more than 10. Now, inside the house, it's a little different story there. I mean, we've done studies and so forth as to how many could fit in there without people starting to bump into things and knock things over. But outdoors, it's a little more open-ended. And if we only had maybe a few special times, the rest of the time, I don't see that we'd really have that. We're not looking at 50 or 60 people tramping all over the grounds of the Truman home. I don't think we're looking at that. Even if we advertise it, I have a hard time seeing that many people show up at any particular time. But that might be an option. People seem to, it wasn't the same as going in, but people really they really liked it. We didn't have people knocking the door down for it, but those that showed up were happy that they were happy. They got to see stuff they never got to see otherwise.
Yeah, and they got an up-close look at the car, and they got an up-close talk about Secret Service, and you guys did a good job with that. Actually, you guys did a great job with that.
Yeah, the Wallace houses, we were able to talk
Wallace
about
homes.
and get a good view. Is just views that you never get otherwise, and that's kind of the one way that we, I don't want to say used it as a bone or a pacifier, but it was, we can't take you inside, but we can show you some stuff you'd never get to see if you took a regular tour. This is special. This is something that you are only going to get to see during a worldwide pandemic. So you better take care of it. You better jump on it. Yeah.
So do we want to do almost like a behind the scenes theme this year?
I mean, not everything we were doing was behind the scenes, but a lot of it turned out to be.
Because if we're going into the mill office, which is not typically open, or we'd open the cabin, which is not typically open, we'd have, a little bit of a unique view from the Truman home and some of its assets. Seems like we're kind of creating a theme here.
Sure. I think that
and one of the other things I like about the National Register thing is that it gives a good opportunity to talk about some of the documents, the primary documents, the real things that went into designating the register, and I know there are a lot of us who like that stuff to show, what goes into getting a site nominated and placed on the National Register.
Oh my goodness, people's heads will spin if they really understand the entire process. It's insane.
Yeah.
And for me, Doug, it would be a great opportunity to get people to understand the difference between local and national designation too.
Right. Exactly.
That's mainly what I was thinking about. I've done the national landmark things already, but the local stuff, there's a lot of confusion.
There's a ton of confusion. I get calls constantly about that. Constantly.
Yeah.
I know you talked about doing it on Zoom, or not Zoom, but as a PowerPoint. Is there a venue outdoors that could potentially be done at?
I don't want to speak for Jeff, but I could tie it to the other presentation that I would like to do. That I would either be open to, of course, doing it at the visitor center, and knock on wood, I think by May we'll be okay. But I do know that some people will be concerned, and we don't want to leave anybody out. I would like to start developing some driveway talks at 219 North Delaware Street. The park recently redid the driveway at 219, and I'd like to put a highlight on that. But the other program that I would like to do, and I would love to do this as a driveway talk, is a program that I've just called Frank and Natalie and George and May talk about the Wallace homes at 601 and 605 Truman, and put the emphasis and the spotlight on May Wallace's oral history that she did with the National Park Service, and play the recording of it, so that they're not necessarily hearing me or a member of my team telling the story. They're going to hear the words directly from May Wallace. And we've been doing a lot of work with our oral histories in the park and on the website, and we're getting ready to put a lot of recordings that we can on the website too, so that those will be available. And then too, you'll know this, Dr. Richet, I've been keeping in mind the new policy on what the National Archives calls, what they call it, harmful language, Sam?
Yeah, sorry, Doug. Yes, I was on mute. Yes, harmful language, that's a notice or disclaimer on the NARA catalog.
Yeah,
it's a little controversial, but
yeah, it's controversial, but so many of our oral histories, and Mrs. Wallace's included, there are some unfortunate words in it. It is what it is, and
sure.
And so we tell that story. The other reason I would like to do that program is that we know that prior to Mrs. Wallace dying, there was a family sale of her possessions, and a lot of things went out into the community. Not that we want to start accessioning a whole bunch of things, but I would love for the park to make some type of reconnection, possibly with some of those items that were bought at that sale. And Mrs. Wallace had a lot of things in her home that came from 219 North Delaware. And at least perhaps some way we can make connection with those and get some more provenance on those. So that program, I think we could certainly do it in the visitor center, but I would love to do it in the driveway. Have people bring their own chairs. We just hook up a mic and some audio and go to town. And I think it'll lead to some interesting conversations. And we will be right beside May Wallace's house. I would love to do it inside, but inside Mrs. Wallace's house, there's not a lot of space and it's not accessible. So I can't even get into it right now. But I think it would be fun as a driveway talk.
Yeah, Doug, you probably know the Truman Library. Oh, I'm sorry, Wendy.
No. Go right ahead. I was just going to talk about the calendar, so feel free.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, and I don't want to digress, but on your point there, Doug, as you may know, the Truman Library conducted its own interview with
right.
May Wallace.
Do you have the recording of hers too? I know that a lot of the recordings were lost, but
I can double check on that, Doug.
Okay.
This one was done in 1988.
Yeah.
At the end of our program, we made the practice of not keeping audio, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, but
lots of good stuff in that one that's not in ours, and vice versa. So
well, and you could always do dramatic readings. That is, have a recording of of an actor, kind of voice actor. Speaking, reading from the transcript. We do have the transcript on our website.
Mm-hmm. But what's so neat about that is that other than Margaret Truman, of course, and Artis Hockenberry, and a few others, we don't have the voices really of Frank and Natalie and George, but we do have May, and it's remarkable. So
yeah. I think it's a really good idea. Now you'd want to have a kind of a weather plan B with a tent or something.
Hi Boy.
What's that?
We go to Hi Boy.
Okay, hey, that's always a good place. Sure. May means rain. And so.
No, that's right. That's right.
Well, what would be the opportunity for the city market to be open on a Sunday or late Saturday afternoons? In that period of time, you have both an outdoor sheltered venue and an indoor sheltered venue there for if they had to have an alternative.
Yeah.
And you can open the doors up and have enough room that and there's enough room that if people still felt they needed to do it, you could find the distance that you wanted there. So just as an alternative.
And that may be a good one for you, Jeff. If we can get the Uptown Market. Yeah, that's a neat facility.
I would look at that as long as we're not conflicting with the farmers market. So we'd have to kind of mix Saturday mornings up until about 1 o'clock and look at it either in the afternoon or perhaps on a Sunday.
Yeah, or late afternoon, early evening, one of those other times. Yeah, because I know it runs until 1 o'clock. But it is a venue that is centrally located, lots of parking around it, and offers the space that everyone would need. And hey, it's not a preservation issue, but it is a community thing that is a positive and a plus to what goes on. So.
I like Jeff's idea a lot because I think too, not only for people like me who aren't natives, but maybe even some locals who may not know that a certain structure is on the NR or was nominated or whatever the case may be. So
if you
want,
and
what I love about NRs is that you'll look at like the Vail Mansion and you'll talk about the history of the Vail family, but there's 3 and 4 other stories going on at that site, and you get into a lot more of that detail in the NRs. So that, you tell the story about education, or you tell the story about, healthcare, or you tell the story, there's just different connections that have nothing to do with the Vails. And you can get into a lot more of that detail when you talk about the history and the background in the NR. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Can I get you all to look at your calendars and let me know if you have a proposed date that you could confirm by March?
Yeah. Do you want to do some weekday evenings too, or do you want to focus on weekends, or what do you want to do?
We have always done across the board. We just pick whatever date works for you. So I don't think that we need to concentrate everything on the weekends by far.
Okay.
Probably wouldn't, if you had to move some of those things from the driveway to somewhere else on Sunday, Sunday you should make sure that the church down there have finished their services.
Yeah.
It won't matter to me. I'm not working there anymore, but everybody else, it would. So but that would give you better parking and other things like that as well. And one of them might even be an alternate place nearby if the weather didn't cooperate.
Yeah.
But they're just, walking distance.
Well, it's completely up to you. I mean, we want it to be as convenient as possible for you all as far as the dates and times go.
Well, be honest with you, if I'm rather than do something outdoors with this if we can't guarantee an indoor setting for a type of PowerPoint, there's about 25 sites in Independence, and I would prefer to wait until we can do an overview of all of them, because I think that might maybe have a little more impact in the long run than just looking at 2 or 3 that are in walking distance of each other. My goal was to alert people just how many of these things there are in their hometown. And it seems the best way to do that would be through some type of a lecture presentation, a PowerPoint or something. Mm-hmm. But the behind the scenes idea, though, if the treatment home isn't open, we will be doing that on a regular basis every day anyway. So we could pick just whatever you think, Wendy, would be the best as far as any kind of crowd, pick 2 or 3 times to announce on any given Saturday or any day of the week that this is available. And we could just make sure that those times are times when we're prepared for more than 10 people. Like I said, I don't think we're going to have to worry about the yard being trampled flat or anything like that. I think we'll be all right.
Well, that's completely up to you. We've got Truman's birthday in there.
That's true.
So that's something that you can either avoid at all cost or highlight, depending on what all's going on around town. And then, you could do it multiple Saturdays. You can do it, just on one day and do it several times on that day. It's completely up to you guys.
Boy, you see, there's so much dependent on whether or not we're going to be able to reopen the house by then. Because if we reopen the house, we won't be doing these yard tours on any kind of. We won't be doing it at all anymore. And then they would have to be specifically scheduled for special tours. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, Doug. What do you think? You think we play it safe and pick?
Yeah, I'm with you. We may know more. Like if we meet a month from now, we may know a lot more. I mean, I am so wonderfully encouraged by the wonderful drop in all matrices of COVID numbers, everything from case counts to positivity rates and everything. But will we be ready to talk about pulling the trigger about getting back to, quote, normal? Maybe we know by this time next month, and we may have a better idea. I would really like to think we would be based. I just looked at Jackson County. Case numbers have dropped 63% in the last couple of weeks. I did as much of a little dance as I possibly could when seeing that. One, because I think the community's healing from that, but then I think all of our heritage sites, including us, will be able to sort of get back to normal.
Oh, Wendy, how far out do you need some kind of definite commitment? The time?
Usually around the first week of April, just so we can start getting the calendar out and have people circle the dates for these events. Okay. So usually I get everything kind of compiled by March, and then we get all the details worked out by the end of March.
So we've got a good 6 weeks at least.
Yes, I think so.
Why don't?
Yeah, that's why we try to do this early, just to really brainstorm and make sure we can get on everybody's calendars and work out the site details. And
Well, Doug, what do you think? My thought is that maybe we ought to just wait and see what happens between now and then, and we'll just commit to make some kind of commitment by the end of March, and what that might be, we'll just have to see. But we can promise to be doing some kind of yard behind the scenes tours.
Yeah, you have our word that we will contribute, and I really think that even by the end of February, we'll get a pretty good feeling on whether what we're seeing this week in terms of COVID is just a blip or if we're really heading out of it. So,
we got to hope the numbers don't come down, but then plateau,
well,
and then hang at a high plateau for a while, right?
Yeah, right.
It looks like, I don't know, maybe what's happening. We'll see. Anyway, okay, so we're on board. You got something from us exactly when it's going to be. We'll be in touch.
No, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay.
Stephanie,
Wendy,
is there anything? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I spoke again. Go ahead, Stephanie, or go ahead.
I'm just kind of brainstorming what's going on over at the jail, and basically for the first time since that jail became Jackson County Historical Property, you're going to be able to go upstairs into the upstairs jail cells. We've cleared them out.
Oh, wow.
Nobody's ever been up there. So we're going to have those all emptied. We have Serve Pro coming out to do a deep clean of all the limestone in the upstairs and the downstairs with a new method that's historically preservation appropriate. And we're going to have it clean, and it's going to smell nice. But we could maybe try to do something around that. Hey, for the first time, you're going to get to go up there. And we actually have some stories about particular prisoners that we know were in certain cells up there. So we're going to have easels made with information about so-and-so was in this cell. So there's going to be a lot more interpretation going on over there. So that could be something that could be worked with.
Yeah,
I didn't even know there were upstairs cells. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's upstairs. There's 8 of them.
I'd really like a chance to highlight all of the work that you've done too on restoration at the property. It would be a really good chance to highlight that.
Yeah, and we're not done by no means. In September on the 17th, we're going to have our big fundraising event called Mugshots. And kind of the idea is we're going to potentially see if we can put a big tent out front of the building and have a big fundraiser, like bring in distilleries and do like whiskey tastings to raise money. Because I don't think a lot of people realize that whole northeast corner has to be completely dismantled and put back together. And then all the windows downstairs still need to be replaced. And then that, obviously that window that's boarded up, that's the whole corner that has to be completely taken apart and redone. So it's a lot of money that we got to raise. We're basically halfway there.
Do you have a contractor that you could have talk about that work?
Yeah, Pisney Restoration is our contractor.
Yeah, so I don't know if Corey could come and talk, because we work with Pisney on the Vale. I don't know if one of your contractors could come and talk one day about what they're going to have to do to support that northwest corner. I think that would really interest people, in addition to the new cells that are above.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We could definitely do something. And of course, we could even do like a talk out in the courtyard, because we've got that kind of cleaned up to where we've been actually having board meetings out in our courtyard. So we could do something like that where he could give a lecture out in the courtyard. That way it's fresh air, and we're not inside of the building. But yeah, that would be a really great idea to kind of highlight this is what's going to be coming to this building, to kind of highlight what's going on over here.
Yeah, that's exciting. If you could take a look at your calendar and let me know dates that might work. Yeah. I don't know if you'd want to make that 2 different events where you could open up the upstairs and then maybe have a restoration talk.
The upstairs is going to be open on March 1st for the first grade tours. They're going to have it completely cleared out. They were working on it today, getting all the furniture moved out. So, I mean, that's going to be open to the public regardless, but we'll just be able to highlight, like, this is the first year in 60 some odd years that you're going to be able to go up there.
And it again speaks to that theme, Wendy, of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does, yeah. I kind of like that idea of, I think it really does. People love to see stuff they're typically not allowed to see. So,
and we could also, I mean, more behind the scenes stuff if we wanted to do a special 1-day event type of situation. There's the root cellar underneath the visitor center that you can go down, and there's light bulbs down there. I don't go down there, it's creepy, but you can go down into the root cellar. And then the basement of the jail, that's another, I wouldn't go down there. We wouldn't even let people go down there. It's mold infested. ServPro's coming to take care of that too.
Well, I know when we had behind the scenes tours at the Vale several years ago, everybody wanted to see the basement and the attic. And we can absolutely do that again this year. I can give a tour and open that up as well. So if we just kind of want to run with that behind the scenes tour, we can do that. I can also, Mike, if you have any interest in giving a cemetery tour, I can have the Sexton's Cottage open.
Oh, yeah.
And we can talk about, I can have Mike Hicks, who was our sexton for years, talk about some of the resources that they utilize, and the work that's been done on the Sexton's Cottage.
Yeah.
And then maybe have a tour of the actual cemetery.
Yeah, that would be fine. That's not a problem. It's usually, not to say that, but it's usually involves 40, 50 plus people that want to hike that cemetery. So it's not and having the idea again of going behind the scenes of the Sexton's Cottage, because a lot of people, well, they don't know. First of all, I find out a lot of people don't know what a sextant is to begin with, and which is I find
a big Presbyterian term.
Is that it? Yeah. Well, the caretaker's place, but they don't know why it's there, and they don't understand the resources that are within those four walls that they can use if they're a genealogist or whatever out there. But I've given 5 or 6 of them. I can pull up an old theme or mix an old theme or whatever you want to do with it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe some of the unknowns.
Sure.
People that just aren't recognized, who may have interesting stones, they may have interesting stories. They just people that are a little more obscure.
Sure. I've been developing a list of the merchants that from the 1840s and 1860s that are buried there.
Oh, so, that's cool.
So there might be a few that show up that have an interesting story. I'll look at it.
Yeah, I really love looking at the old maps about how the cemetery developed, and how Nolan Road kind of slowly developed through there. All the streets were different, that the whole layout was different, and that might be a fun part of the story to tell too.
The house they tore down to put the north section in. There's always that one too. But I don't
even know that people know that there was a Catholic cemetery that was there. That this was all kind of separated out at one point.
Or became originally started with the Staten family and their cemetery, which is still a portion of the cemetery on the far east side. So, and the other unknowns. Let me look at the obscure and see. Yeah,
that would be great. Are there any antebellum sites, Mike, that you think we could do a behind the scenes tour at, even just on a property?
Let me think about it. I don't know right now. All of them being private homes is always an interesting thing. Those tend to be more sidewalk tours because of that particular. There's some interesting ones in there that people look at and think they know the story, but don't realize it. I mean, there were 3 Flournoy houses in a row on Main Street. One of them's gone, the other 2 are still there. And then the Arnold house behind the one that everybody thinks is the carriage house, but it isn't. It's a house that was moved from over on Liberty in Maine, I believe it was at. So different stories. But yeah, I'll look at Annabelle. I'll look at it, Wendy. But I think because they are spread so far apart, that you end up like the National Registry things, that there's so many of them so far apart, it becomes difficult to do. So, but I'll look into it.
Again, you know, we have to physically be at all of these properties. So if we want to take 5 antebellum properties and we want to highlight them online and we want to put these signs out in front, you know, talk to the owners and see if they'd be willing to do that from the sidewalk, or if we want to take a theme here and highlight certain properties. We just want to put information online as brief history with a timeline.
Mm-hmm. You froze on us, Wendy.
I think she's trying to emphasize her point.
That's it.
That pause, that deep pause, poignant pause.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry, I popped off there for a minute. We can, you know, we can do that. We can utilize some of these other resources. So,
I like the theme idea, Wendy. As we're talking, I mean, I'm trying to think how the Truman Library could participate. You know, it is the 50th anniversary year of Harriet Truman's death. Now that's December, but you know, it's still an anniversary year. So I'm kind of just putting that out there as a brainstorming thought. But we have someone else has joined us there, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello. You know, as you know, we just reopened the library after an extensive renovation. So I'm trying to think of behind the scenes. We are renovating our historic auditorium at the moment, where Mr. Truman took the podium numerous times, as you know, to talk to students, and various VIPs were in that auditorium. Candidate John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson signed the Medicare Act on that stage. But it's currently being, you know, renovated at the moment as we speak. Literally, we have contractors over there. So that won't be done till June. And I know Kevin McMurray, the facility manager over there, would not allow me to, you know, poke their heads in even. But I mean, that's the most interesting thing that I think that's related to
you know, Sam, I would love to tag team with you. Maybe we could develop a fun program on Oakland, Missouri. There.
Yeah.
Because I still believe Oakland, Missouri is one of the great Truman documents. That's the official United States military plan for Truman's funeral. And the military, gosh, they put together just an incredible planning document.
Yeah, the funeral that never was, you know,
right,
in a sense. Yeah.
Right.
Could you contrast that against the funeral that was? Because I know there's a lot of public documents, pictures, and all those kind of things that really are behind the scenes, again, with some of the things that went on or didn't, as you did, Doug, didn't go on during that time, because I remember
there's great photos.
I was home from college that weekend, and I remember the overtaking of the town at that day.
Yeah.
And a friend of the
there are some great photos. Some of them are on our website. You know, some we have put on the website yet. I mean, that could be behind the scenes too, in a sense too. Show photos that are not widely available yet. You know,
not to draft in Jeff Rogers with the Independence Square, but he sang in the choir at the funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow! Huh.
I know a gentleman who was brought before the Secret Service because he said that somebody ought to shoot that Nixon when he comes to town. And that happened at my dad's service station, and who knows how they ever found out about it. But they were out interviewing everybody in the station that day, and went to his house. So
the only challenge with this topic, though, is we want to connect it to the built environment. I can see Wendy's face right now, right? You want to connect this somehow.
No, I'm just listening. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, he laid in state at the Truman Library, you know, it's formerly the main lobby there, the mural room. But so I mean, that's something worth exploring, Doug and others.
Yeah, you know,
the pictures are always great.
What's that?
Go ahead, Doug.
Sorry.
I did in December what my wife called probably the most depressing series of Facebook posts ever, where every day I documented how Truman was at Research Hospital. And what really hit me right away was, and then when we got to the funeral, how many people put on there that they stood in line to visit Truman lying in state, or they stood in line listening to the funeral, or they watched from a respectful distance from the north. That was really something to see those comments.
Well, we have photos too, as you've probably seen, Doug. You know, the hundreds of people lined up across the front steps of the Truman Library, down the driveway there, up toward 24 Highway, right down 24 Highway. It's really well.
Yeah.
You could was not that funeral put together, and at least some of it by the Carson Funeral Home?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you could tap them for anything that they may still have back there.
We've been trying to get the actual death on. Sorry, Dwayne. We were trying to get the actual death records from HCA Corporation. Now owns the research hospital, and they're less than cooperative, to put it lightly, to put it nicely, about our efforts, because we understand, they still have records relating to Mr. Truman's final illness and death, and they will not give them up. They insist. They're very legalistic about, which I understand for HIPAA and other things. But we even asked Clifton Truman Daniel if he could get involved, and they kind of even rebuffed him. They wanted more. We had to get lawyers involved, and we don't want to go that direction.
Yeah. The embalming machine that Carson's used is on display at a museum in Texas.
Oh, wow. Was that?
Wow.
Don't ask me how I know that, but.
Because it was probably, oh golly, what was his name? I can't remember it right now. Who had one of the most fascinating collection of funerary and embalming stuff here in town, and can't remember any, and he donated it all to Texas, or most of it.
Yeah, that's it.
I was president of the Minister Alliance, so the community service that was held at the auditorium, I planned that. I have all that documentation. I gave copies of the content of all those prayers, sermons, everything to the Truman Library, but I also have my copy and everything. If you need that, something around books, that was one of the big deals. Most of the public couldn't go to the service. It was so private and small, and it was very well attended.
So there's a whole behind the scenes look that can be done. It sounds like.
Yeah, I would like to encourage all of you, if you've got photos of before and afters, or just historic photos that we can share the whole month of May on social media posts, I can pull all of those together and ask them to just, post them every 4 days or 5 days on the city's website, and we can link, on both websites for your organizations also. So if you have historic photos, people love to see them, especially ones that you think maybe are rare, like you said, Sam, that the public doesn't typically get access to. I think that would be a great theme to just kind of keep pulling through the month, then, of that behind the scenes things that the public's not generally it's not accessible to the public in general. So
sure,
good idea.
Anything else? We've hit our hour. I try to keep these really brief, just because I know how important everybody's time is. And every time we get together, we love to share historical facts and stories, and so I could sit here for like hours and just listen to all these stories. So I really try to stay on task and keep you guys from having to hang out too long.
Well, speaking for the retirees, this is our only chance to talk to somebody other than our wife. So she didn't hear me say that, by the way, so I'm okay.
I'm going to tell her you said that.
Well, I've been married almost 50 years, so it's too late now.
Yeah, I got you beat at 55.
Really?
Going on 56.
Well, we started dating at 15, Dwayne, and we're still together. So,
mine was a blind date. Worry about blind dates.
She took one look at you, and that was,
and Mike, that's age 15, not 1915, right?
No.
Sorry.
Good one, Sam.
Good one though.
Ow.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
No,
hey, you got more hair than I do. You still have more hair than I do.
Oh no.
We had joint things done with the First Presbyterian. We did some worship in a parking lot over there between the churches. And the former pastor at the Christian church introduced me as older than the Presbyterian building, which was built in 1888.
Wow.
Luckily, nobody believed him. So
Well,
I'll see if I can find some old church pictures too, before and after.
yeah, that would be fantastic, Dwayne.
Yes.
When do you want to meet
I
again,
think that
Wendy?
we've got a really good collection of activities here. We can easily make, you know, a page and a half of calendar events. So I think we're good to go. Anything else that you can think of or that pops up that you think ties in with this, you know, I'm happy to add to the calendar. It doesn't have to just be the heritage groups that are here today. So please let me know if you have any problem with meeting again, because February and March have the exact same dates. We're just going to flip to March 9th and same time, same station, and do another hour and just kind of wrap up the last of these events. But I think this is a terrific use of outdoor space considering what's going on, and everybody will be so happy to be outside anyway because it'll be May and the weather should be good. So I think it's just kind of a win-win all the way around. But we're still going to brainstorm at the next Heritage Commission meeting about these preservation awards. If anything comes up or you just kind of an idea pops in your head, please let me know, because I'd love to tie the council back in, but I really want to find a better way to really highlight what's going on. You know, if it's recognized at Heritage Commission and then at council and that's it, and there's no recognition throughout the month, then maybe we're not, you know, meeting the goals that were originally intended with these awards. So otherwise, I will see you all March 9th, unless anybody else has anything else to discuss.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all so much for your time and your input, and I will see you all soon.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye now.
everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Thanks, Steve.